Hi there, this is Spooky David. I got a number of stories this week all revolving around strange beast sightings around the world. Actually, we got some good ones. Please stay tuned in. Let's see what we can find out from these people who have submitted their stories to me. Okay, the first story is from Roger from Philadelphia. I've lived in South Philly for all my life and seen a million strange things in my work as a teacher of humanities at Philly U. That one night I was on my way to see a wrestling show with my brother, Eustace, when we heard a flapping sound directly above us. Eustace looked up as something grabbed at his arm and pulled him meters into the air. It was so dark that night I could barely see a thing apart from Eustace kicking and screaming above me. He finally fell to the ground, freeing himself from what he said were sharp talons. We had no idea if this was a freakishly large bird or maybe some dinosaur, but something had swooped down that night and lifted him high above my head. Even to this day, Eustace has marks on his arms, crucid scratches as evidence of that night. Now every time we're out on the streets of Philly at night, we can't help but look around at the sky, dubious of what might sweep down and grab at us. Okay, the next story is by Rosie, who is in California. We just bought some carp for our pond in the front yard, 6 of them, costing $300 each. They were my husband's lucky fish, and this was the last feature that we needed to finish off our new yard. The next day after buying the carp, my husband ran inside and pulled at me. "Eaten," he said. "They've all been eaten." He shouted at me loud. He was quaking with terror and crying as he told me. I went outside to see what all the fuss was about and saw that the fish were all bitten in half. Most of them missing a head, 1 missing fingers, 2 of them were bitten vertically. We had no idea what foul trouble it bestowed upon us with these fish right now. We reported it to the police, as my husband was sure it must be the work of a ravenous stray dog, or maybe a mad hyena. We quickly bought replacement carp for the front yard, and finally my husband had calmed down. Maybe this would spell the end of the troubles. Unfortunately, this was only about 65% of the way through. The next morning, when I was getting the mail from the front yard, I noticed that once again the fish were all bitten to bits. It was the early morning still, and looking around, I noticed giant animal footprints leading off into the forest behind me. At this point, we decided not to replace the carp. Instead, we'd have a statue for the front yard. It just wasn't worth the trouble. And our next story is by Reggie, who sent this in from London. I live in West London, by the Birmingham bypass in East Croydon. My name's Reggie. I was on my way home after going for a meal with friends, Jacko and Albie. I was walking beside the canal at around 10:30 at night, as I puffed on a fag. I fancied some fish and chips, so I headed towards the Watford Junction, but before I turned, I heard an ungodly splash coming from the canal behind me. It was as if somebody had fallen into the waters, or a mad beast was thrashing on the surface. I looked back and caught a glimpse of the strangest thing I've ever seen. Without a second thought, I ran towards Watford Junction as fast as I could, and there was in serious danger here, I could tell Turning the corner onto the high street at last, I put out my fag on the wall and went into the chip shop. After ordering some fish and chips, I slumped into a chair with my food and thought back on what I'd just bloomin' witnessed. To this day I'll never forget, although I do regret to this point having not called the police. Could they have helped? Well, thanks very much to Roger, Rosie and Reggie. They've all sent me some good stories this week. Alright guys, take care, all the best. Bye now. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for some future scary monsters from me, Spooky David. Woo!